So the question, so I'm going to read one from Mark Gonzalez. So if you have more than one idea that you're passionate about, do you recommend pursuing all at the same time or just focus on one at a time?
So on the e-commerce, so the question is what's going on with e-commerce? Where's the excitement? So the real excitement in e-commerce right now is customization. So whether it's 3D printing, whether it's just-in-time manufacturing, whether it's everybody with their, using big data to make a t-shirt business on Facebook, it's all no longer about mass market. It's about making niche products that the friction and the cost to get an aggregated niche market is very simple. So you'll see more and more of that and go where people's passions are because their wallets will follow their passions. Great question.
Great. And Jay, the question, so you caught one question, I didn't catch it, this one, it's in the chat, but the questions are also in the Q&A. Can you see the Q&A?
I do not see the Q&A. Read me your question.
So one question here is, what recommendation do you have for angel funding options for startups?
Okay, so I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars for startups, and let me tell you the thinking process that people go at. The first round of angels is you have to go to people that know you. Even if it's just small dollars, it proves the people that know you trust you, okay? Second is go for people that would benefit, that would want to become customers. So when Ray Kroc came up with the idea of fast food at McDonald's, nobody wanted to lend him money. The idea of a fast restaurant didn't exist. You sat down with your family, a waitress brought you stuff that just didn't exist. So he went to the meat suppliers and said, if I'm right, this works. When Fred came up with the idea for FedEx, okay, he wrote it as a business school paper. He got a low grade on it. They said it was stupid. But he saw an airplane manufacturer had a bunch of planes that they got a canceled order on, and he said, if this works, we're going to become a big customer of planes. So they backed them. So look at strategic money. I have a whole chapter in Disrupt You on OPM, other people's money. There are people that are willing to give you money in your startup that don't want equity and don't want you to pay it back. And I give examples where I've gotten $60 and $80 million from people that don't want the money back and don't want equity.
Yep.
Next question.
Thanks. So next one, you spoke at the beginning that before thinking of solving a problem, we need to think of changing ourselves. What does that exactly mean in terms of disruption?
So self-disruption is like plastic surgery, except you're holding the scalpel. There are things that are holding you back from taking these risks. There's our parents, teachers, and well-wishers that told you you're not good at math, you're not good at public speaking. You've taken one of those Myers-Briggs complete BS tests that say you have this personality. No, you don't. You had that personality yesterday. Today, you can have any personality you want. So it's really about getting out of that mindset that's been drilled into us. Our whole educational system was designed to create factory workers, to give you enough math and enough reading to go work for somebody else. So you either have reached that point in life where you realize, I'm going to spend my entire life making someone else's dream come true, or I'm going to work on making my dreams come true. Next question.
Next question. So Jeff here is asking, he has a question about disruption and innovation in highly regulated and capital-intensive industries. There seems to be significant variance in the level of innovation across industries and markets. What factors contribute to this, and how do you overcome these barriers in environments that have a powerful status quo?
I got 304 pages that answer that, but I'll try to do the short version. That's really the driving question behind this book. In industries that are highly consolidated, they actually don't want innovation. There's a basic premise of, we'll do it. So the example, Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975. For many people listening, you weren't born yet, okay? They never came out with it. Why? Because the guy in charge of the film division, film had an 80% margin. They owned film. Why would they want to cannibalize their own business? So whoever was in charge of that in the company, basically their career was over. What Kodak didn't realize is a good idea will come, whether Kodak likes it or not. And now the 100-year-old Kodak company, all gone. So different industries have barriers set up. Certain governments tax dollars going into startups as a way to prevent new innovation and new rich people, because the people that are in charge want to keep it that way. All those barriers are malleable. You can change them. And we try to show you how, but great question.
Thank you. So people tend to say now, so wait a minute, if you have more than one idea that you're passionate about, should you work on all of them at the same time or focus?
Okay. So you're in an elevator, the door's open, Richard Branson walks in there and he says, I like you. Today I'm putting $1 million in a new business. What business would you like me to put it in? And if you start rattling off a whole list, no. It is so hard to get one company off the ground. There's no way you can do 2 or 3 at the same time. You're really going to have to say, this is the one, because success isn't guaranteed. And you're going to have to really work hard. And every major success had a pivot moment where it looked like the end was near. And if you're not willing to stick with it on that one idea, you won't get to the finish line. And again, if we had time, I'd give you lots of examples of businesses that you know today that actually grew out of the ashes of a failed idea.
Great. So next question. So disruption is hard in regulated industry like healthcare. How would you go about doing this?
So I'm not going to give legal advice or medical advice for all the obvious reasons, but there's a broad category of healthcare, okay? So creating wearables, creating diagnostics. I mean, if you really think about it, your Fitbit, your Up, those are medical devices. They're really about changing your cardiovascular and being able to measure or monitor, but they're not making medical claims, okay? If you have a better way to test blood or a better way to do this, you're really going to have to go through the regulatory process. Just as when I was chairman of a crowdfunding company that was very, very successful, but we had to go through everything that the SEC requires, the Securities and Exchange Commission, because you have to follow the laws. Now, the challenge is laws trail technology by 20 years. So, you're going to be slowed down by those processes, but it won't stop you.
Great. So thank you, Jay. Next question here. So we're going to take the final question, guys. So put them in. So someone is asking, except for LinkedIn, is there any other way to network and find a mentor?
Oh, absolutely. So the best way is to go to conferences, trade shows, gatherings in your field or your field that you're interested, because that's where you get to meet thought leaders. That's where you get to meet doing something. When I had my first startup, a little software company that no one ever heard of, at the big trade shows where the big giant companies, the Microsofts and everybody were, we had a teeny little booth at the smallest end where nobody went to. And the guy who came to visit us was a sales guy who was looking for what's the next product that he could sell. He knew sales, but he didn't know technology. And he became, my national rep. So there's always a place where there's people seeking. That's why so many conferences exist. You will not change the world sitting at your desk. You have to get out there and meet people and do, I've this year spoke in, I think, 12 countries and 26 states this year. And I'm always being exposed to new ideas and new things. I wish I could pursue all of them, but things that I would have never run across had I not taken the time to see the person with the next crazy idea.
Thanks. So the next question is about the Hyperloop transportation technology. So have you heard about it? And is it science fiction or reality? What's your thought?
So I know Elon Bebop, who runs one of them, is a dear friend. The other one's here in building a test track. So the science behind it is sound as can be, maglev and vacuums and combinations thereof. The real challenge is mass public transportation involves government and billions of dollars. So the first one is the hardest one to get off the ground. But when you realize how bad and ancient the infrastructure is in many countries, if you can find the one country that it can change their whole economy by doing this more efficiently, by promoting tourism, by doing all kinds of things, you'll suddenly then see it snowball. So yeah, absolutely. It's a great means of transportation and very efficient, and I'm very bullish on it. So I want to thank everybody for sharing their most precious resource with me today, which is their time. Again, I'm not pushing the book for me. I'm really spent the time to try to help as many of you, and I'd love to hear from you. You can follow me on Twitter for daily motivational advice and insights about disruption at @JSamit. And again, I want to thank you for inviting me on the Startups chat today.